Hey everyone, I'm Army Gaming. Welcome back to my channel and welcome to the very first of what potentially is going to be many monster analysis update video. The reason I feel the need to do update videos on analysis is because with the implementation of the library, thus team wars involving books, previous monsters that weren't so good within their own elements just because they happened to be too slow or they didn't have the right trait, the right immunity, now all of a sudden they can be top tiers in their own book. And so that's the main reason why I want to do update analysis videos. But specifically Alex Bone, he needs an immediate update because there has been some major changes to this monster. If you saw my previous analysis on Alex Bone, you would know that he isn't necessarily anything too special. He's not bad by any means, but he didn't really have a wow factor. Like, don't get me wrong, he has a power of 3,498. That is pretty darn high. That is higher than most monsters in the game. His life of 27,000 isn't too shabby either, and his speed 3,465. This makes him equal with a lot of top tier deny monsters. The thing was though, that Alex Bone could not be used as a deny monster himself because he didn't have any guaranteed immobilizing skill. Sure, he had an AoE stun skill, but it was only a 50% chance of landing. And so thus his only purpose was to be an attacker. Well, I'm here to tell you that some things have changed and he's definitely a way better monster than before. All of the changes I'm going to be discussing have been attained through the Monster Legends forum, through a post called Alex Bone Rebalance by Carlos, so full credit goes to him and to the forum. And so the very first change to Alex Bone is his speed. According to the post, Alex Bone's speed should be increased by 1 point. So rather than having a speed of 3,465, it's actually going to be 3,466. Now, is this change significant? Yes and no, because this makes him faster than most top tier deny monsters. And if you and your opponent had the exact same level runes, Alex Bone would go before the enemy. And if you're thinking armor, of course, because as an offense player, the attacker always goes first. If they have the exact same speed, yes, that's true, but if you were to place Alex Bone on defense, then Alex Bone would get the advantage just because of that one extra point. So it is a significant update worth mentioning. But the main changes comes to this monster's skills, and the first thing I'm going to talk about is not a change but a clarification. Evasion. Originally I thought evasion was just like Timerion Spacetime. If you know what Spacetime does, basically you don't take any damage. You can still get hit with status effects, freeze, stun, DOTs, burning, bleeding, nightmares, you know, every single negative status effects, you can still get hit with it. Apparently though, evasion is going to be something entirely different. It's going to be a top tier effect. It's basically Spacetime and Timerion's trait artifact. You get both of those in one. Not only does this protect you against attacks, it also protects against status effects. What does that mean? That means you can't be immobilized. If you attack and get your self-evasion on, you can't be possessed, you can't be stunned, you can't be immobilized, they can't apply a DOT on you, all status effects are useless against you, which is so darn amazing. Because this guarantees that you always get an attack in the next turn. You're not going to be immobilized and you're not going to take any damage, so you can't die. Evasion is incredible. And thus there is now actually a reason to run Payne the Marshal. I'll talk about that a little later, but just know that Invasion is just phenomenal. So the first skill that got a major change is Contrived Outbreak. It still deals the same amount of damage, it costs the same amount of stamina. The cooldown went up by 1, so it used to be a 1 turn cooldown, now it's a 2 turn cooldown. But what changed was the effect. Instead of having a 50% chance to stun the target, now it's may stun the target. Is this significant? Definitely. And a slight argument can be made to this being not so significant, because if you ran this monster as an attacker, 60 damage, given this monster's power, given the fact that he's a team race monster, so most of us will get him ranked up to rank 3 at level 115, you don't really need a status effect, you don't really need a stun, because most of the time, whatever monster this guy targets, he's going to be killing them. If they don't have a lot of life runes or high level life runes, he's going to one-hit the enemy monster. But on that off chance that the monster doesn't die, on the off chance that the monster survives, thank goodness he's still going to be immobilized because you can stun them. In the past it was just 50% chance, so you couldn't rely on the stun, but now you can. My cellmate Hakataka, this skill just got an increase in the damage output. Instead of being 35 damage, it's now 40 damage, and those 5 points can make a significant difference, especially when you pair it up with another AoE. And once again, like the previous skill Marshal, this gives you evasion, which means that you can do this strong AoE, this 40 damage thunder based AoE, and protect yourself from anything. If you're battling against water monsters, you know how significant that is? Not only do you deal very heavy damage, the equivalent to 60 against water-based monsters, you also protect yourself from their freeze or from their possession. That is phenomenal. And thus we move on to Max Authority, which in my opinion got the most significant boost. This skill, the cooldown went up by 1, but this skill went from being a 50% chance to stun all enemies to a 100% chance to stun all targets, which means that you can run Alex Bone as a deny monster, especially because of his high speed. And of course you can still use him as an attacker who just happens to have an AoE stun skill. So if your deny monster is someone like General Thetis that drains all the stamina, then Alex Bone can come in and stun all the enemy monsters. There's just so many different possibilities now with Alex Bone. Use him as an attacker, use him as a deny monster, use him as a mix of the two. He's incredible. He can't be immobilized. Like, can you just imagine? Use my cellmate, deal 40 damage, thunder base, get evasion, can't be immobilized. On the next turn, you can use max authority, 40 special base damage, you can AoE stun, if anyone's still alive, they're immobilized, you've taken no damage with Alex Bone. I just can't get over how this rebalance actually made this monster really darn good. And then we have Hellfire's Furlough, which is a special based attack that deals 45 damage, and the change to this skill was that it went from being a 50% chance to daze to 100% chance to daze, so it got the same kind of change that Max Authority did. Oh, and even though it doesn't mention it here on the wiki, the cooldown according to the post is also going up to 3. So both Max and Hellfire, they're going to have a 3-turn cooldown. And so with these changes, you must be wondering, what does that mean for this monster? Well, let's take a look at a few different possibilities in terms of skill sets. One thing you can do, which you could have done in the past before his skills were changed, is to run both Max Authority and Hellfire's Furlough, because these two AoEs combined deal the equivalent to 95 special base damage. The difference is that now you can start off with Max Authority because it's a 100% chance to stun. In the past, it was a 50% chance to stun, so even if you use Max Authority, some of the enemy monsters wouldn't be immobilized, making them free to attack you. But now, because you have this guaranteed chance to stun, if they're not immune to stun if the attack actually hits, keep in mind that AoEs at the end of the day have a 90% accuracy, on the following turn use Hellfire's Furlough and the whole enemy team is wiped out. You could potentially run 3 AoEs if you wanted to. I personally don't recommend it. I'm not a fan of having a lot of AoEs. Honestly, most of the time 2 AoEs is overboard for me, but 3 AoEs, that is insane. But it could potentially work. If the enemy monsters had a lot of life runes, had shields, you can start the game off with My Cellmate, you have evasion, you can't be attacked. On the next turn you use Max Authority, now they're immobilized, and on the next turn you do your AoE daze, which is 45 damage. Together we have 45 and 40, that's 85. I think in the past I said 95, sorry about that, I meant 85. And then My Cellmate, that's an extra 40, that's 125 damage, 3 turns, 2 of which you weren't taking any damage. Honestly, this monster is really good in terms of damage output. And likewise, you can still run the original skill set I was talking about, My Cellmate, Max Authority, Contrived Outbreak, and Kakar's Desertion, because in my opinion, that's still a really good skill set. The only difficult thing now is choosing a skill set because there's so many different good possibilities. One more thing I want to mention is that this monster could potentially work on defense. Now of course you might be thinking no, because of his trait, he's immune to blind. This makes him susceptible to being stunned, specifically in the thunder category. He can also obviously be possessed by monster device, and in terms of him going up against other elements, well then you have the water monsters that can freeze you, you have magic monsters that can possess you, earth monsters that can stun you. There's just so many ways to immobilize this monster if he's on defense. But that's not to say he wouldn't work on defense, because it's very particular to each individual and to the current team war. If you're in a team war where you have way better runes than your opponent, you look at their monsters on defense and they have level 4 or 5 runes, you know they can outspeed you. If you have high level speed runes on Alex Bone, then he would be a really good monster because Alex Bone is going to be going first. And if you run My Cellmate, Hakataka, and Pain the Marshal, you have a 50% chance of using the skill that gives you evasion, meaning that the enemy monster isn't going to be able to immobilize your Alex Bone. And if you run Max Authority, there's a 25% chance of using your AoE stun skill, so you might immobilize them before they try to immobilize you. And if you're specifically making a defense build, the final skill would be to run Contrived Outbreak or Hellfire's Furlough, both of which are pretty good because Hellfire is an AoE daze. That could work because the enemy's accuracy will be reduced by 25%, and Contrived Outbreak is a single stun, once again another mobilizing skill. And so regardless of what skill you choose for the final skill, this monster would pretty much be AI proof. Not completely AI proof, but more like 75% AI proof. Because Pain the Marshal would be a good skill, My Cellmate Hakataka would be a good skill, and Max Authority would be a good skill to use on the first turn. So this monster definitely has some usability in terms of defense. Oh, and before I forget, if you're running this monster for pure deny purposes, you want to run Max Authority, Hellfire's Furlough, and My Cellmate Hakataka, as well as your choice of Contrived Outbreak and Pain the Marshal, and I think I myself would lean more towards Contrived Outbreak. Keep in mind that when you're a deny monster, your whole purpose is to stop the enemy in some way, shape, or form. AoE Stun does that the best, and Daze also does that in case any monsters are still alive. Evasion helps for your monsters to stay alive just in case you fail to deny one turn, just in case the enemy is really powerful and you're scared of it. Evasion can help you out. And so it could be worth it to run both of your evasion skills, or it could be worth it to run a single stun because this is more accurate than an AoE, and sometimes there's a main threat that you need to immobilize first. And so with that being said, that is going to be my analysis update on Alex Bone. Please let me know what you guys thought about the video, and also let me know what other monsters you want to see me update. I know there were some monsters in the past that weren't originally good in their own elements, but now with the introduction of bugs, I can imagine lots of you are thinking that certain monsters really shine. So let me know in the comments which monsters are worth reanalyzing. And since this video is about Alex Bone, please let me know what you think about this monster. If you happen to get this monster, are you going to run him offensively, defensively, are you going to run him as a deny monster? I'm really curious to hear all of your guys' thoughts because the changes to this monster have been insane. So please share your thoughts in the comments below. Like always, I'm Armor Gaming. Remember to dream big and pursue your passions.